Again, the world phenomenon is a jailbreak. Everybody but everybody is trying to get out of the U.S. empire, be it Egypt, be it Saudi Arabia, be it Pakistan, Gaddafi for sure, Algeria, all of them. Some of them look to China. Some of them look to Russia. Some of them look to Iran. Some of them, like Turkey, are essentially trying to build themselves up as a new pole in the Middle East with some success. And the response of the CIA and the State Department to that is what we're seeing. The most sweeping wave of destabilizations, putsches, coups, subversion, destabilization that we've ever seen, well, since 1848, I guess, when the British did it to their enemies in continental Europe. You can see there's a fight between Medvedev and Putin in Moscow. Who pulled the string on that? The U.S.
Okay.
In Iran, right? There's a fight between Ahmadinejad and the top mullah. Who did that? Well, again, same thing.
Interesting. The whole world as a jailbreak. That's very interesting, Webster.
Jailbreak out of the empire, yes.
And we also have been joined this evening. I'm sorry to cut you short, but we also have to play a clip of sound, and we have to ask our audience to call 212-209-2950 and support this WBAI Sunday News. And you can start calling because we're going to do a little more programming, but we really need you to pick up your phones and call. We're offering tonight The Power of Nightmares for a pledge of $55, and it's a wonderful 180-minute DVD in a 4-part series, and we're asking you to support us. But we also have been joined by Sarah Flounders, as we mentioned her before, co-director of the New York-based International Action Center and author of many books on the Middle East, who in a May 3rd article says this operation is being used to expand military budgets, weapons systems, new drone attacks, which we already saw last week, and repressive so-called security measures here in the U.S. And Sarah, I think we have to kind of do this very quickly. How are you, by the way?
Hi, very good.
Okay, welcome. And so Webster is basically put out that this was, in fact, not a real operation, that it was an operation leading to more false flag operations. And we've heard this from many other sources, that wasn't even bin Laden's body, that they hurriedly dropped into the ocean the next day. And so what are your feelings about this?
Well, I think very little is known about this whole operation. We should just know that the very idea of these wars are all a lie. Consider weapons of mass destruction, where they claim they had invoices, satellite pictures, all kinds of evidence, testimony, and on for the war in Iraq, and none of it was real. So we know very little, and it's all speculation and very worthwhile to be totally distrustful. The bigger question I always think behind it is, what are they really pushing? What's their agenda? Which is more war and justifying the wars that they're currently fighting, and justifying a still far larger military budget, and also trying to hype up and sell these special commando units, justifying torture, Guantanamo, all sorts of secret rendition, kidnapping of people around the world.
Thank you for that call.
Is absolutely from beginning to end criminal, illegal, lawless behavior. When President Obama, in announcing this, said, it was really quite a statement. Today we're reminded as a nation that there's nothing we can't do. And that's the message. Go anywhere, kill anyone, bomb anyone, use torture, kidnapping, secret rendition, destroy any country. They're trying to say there's nothing that the Pentagon can't do. No restraints, no limits, international lawlessness. U.S. drones killed more than 1,000 people in Pakistan alone. Those are the regular assassinations that go on of nameless people. So the targeted assassination of bin Laden, which they knew that by their own admission where he was for months, is to justify the use of torture and further wars. Mm-hmm. It is, I think, though, interesting to ask why this particular week. If they say they knew where he was for months and he was living at this location, an estate right next to the the Kirkuk, Pakistan Military Academy. It's sort of like being found in the basement of West Point or in a state next door to West Point. But why this particular week? Like, what else was going on that they wanted to change the message and show a pumped-up, all-powerful U.S. message to the world? And there, at least I think it's interesting to ask what else was happening in the world that was of particular problem in terms of changing the image. Now, 3 days before, there was a giant prison break in Kandahar. 500 prisoners labeled as Taliban, including 104 commanders, escaped from a prison in Kandahar. A tunnel stretching a half mile had electricity, air holes, and so on. The very next day, a U.S. lieutenant colonel, 2 majors, 4 captains, a master sergeant, and a retired lieutenant colonel were killed in a meeting room in Kabul airport, not by al-Qaeda, not by the Taliban, but by a trusted Afghan officer in the Afghan Air Force, 20 years seniority, turned the gun around. And the media hushed this up. They said 8 Americans killed, period. And then it comes out, this was very important. And it's the 7th time this year that a trusted Afghan officer has turned the gun around and killed U.S. military. So the hatred burns deep through every part of the society against the occupation. There was something else that happened just a couple days
I
before.
think we can't necessarily go into that.
There were mass sit-ins of thousands of people that blocked all the roads to the Khyber Pass, tens of thousands of people in Pakistan, stopping all U.S. supplies into Afghanistan. The main supply route blocked, claiming if there are any more drone attacks, they would shut down everything. So there was a lot happening that isn't so much reported here, where the U.S. wanted to project an all-powerful message that they could get anyone, and so then comes, they knew where bin Laden was for quite some time, but this well-publicized attack. That's one speculation, but I think it's we need to say bring the troops home, end the wars, and no more justification for any of these wars.
I agree with you, Sarah, on all of those counts. And so it's very interesting what you and Webster are saying are not so different. And, of course, it is true that the bin Laden tape of October 2004, as you said, Webster, helped get Bush elected. And it seems that in an article today, the Obama was absolutely touted, given, as the Bloomberg News said, high marks for ordering bin Laden raid from none other than Dick Cheney. So, of course, it'll help that. And I just want to tell the listeners, this is WBAI 99.5 FM New York. We are doing our spring fund drive, and we are asking you to support the WBAI Sunday News. We're going to give you about 5 minutes of the DVD that we're offering you tonight, and that
Ellie,
DVD.
Could I just say one thing?
Very quickly, Webster, because we have 18 minutes.
What Sarah says, and the tactical considerations she cites are undoubtedly very important. Strategically, though, it's the visit of Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia to Pakistan at the end of March. These are the 2 most important countries that are right now trying to make a jailbreak from the empire. Pakistan, the biggest with nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia, of course, the oil. If they make a joint exit from the empire, leaning on each other with Russia and China in the background, then that's a catastrophe. The other thing is that Gaddafi, by resisting, and the Syrian government, by resisting these color revolutions, they have stopped the momentum of the color revolutions across the Arab world. And this is right now equivalent to the U.S. offensive against the nation-state in that part of the world bogging down. So I think there's a...
Only on WBAI will you hear this kind of analysis. The analysis from Sarah Flounders and from Webster Tarpley. They have both been on target. An honest assessment of what is going on in the world today. This is not CBS, NBC. It's none of that. This is WBAI, gritty, down and dirty WBAI.
And Webster and Sarah, are you still there?
Yes, listen,
yes,
I wanted to add my urging to people. I grew up in Queens there in Flushing, and by the time I got to PS20 or Junior High School 185, I guess it was, and certainly at Flushing High School, I think it was absolutely fundamental to have WBAI, and I was just shocked to hear this perspective that Sally laid out, right? If you lose WBAI, even though you don't agree with everything that's on it, of course, but the array, right? There's a lot of extremely valuable stuff, but to lose it completely would, I think, be a nightmare, right? New York City without WBAI is just unthinkable, and to let that happen would be simply a tremendous loss, capitulation, disgrace, shame. So I urge people, do what you can.
Like you, Webster, I grew up
I'll
with
just
WBAI
add to that very
also.
much so, to pick up the phone and make the call, 212-209-2950. Sally, what you've done with the Sunday News for years has been so important, keeping WBAI on air, keeping the news on Sunday on air with really always hard-hitting programming that asks serious
Thank you for that call.
questions. I think folks really need to step up, make those calls of support, keep the Sunday News on, and keep WBAI on air.
212-209-2950 is the number to call, and we really appreciate also, the contributions that you, Sarah, and you, Webster, make to this discussion, to inform a discussion with something that isn't just the pat look at things. And certainly as we looked at the media and how it reacted and how people reacted, and we saw that people came out in mass the night that it was announced that Osama bin Laden was killed. And so the people were celebrating death. There was a celebration of death, and people thought they were celebrating a victory. And then Obama came on and said, yeah, we showed him that we mean business and that you can't hide from us. Where did we hear that before? You can't hide from us. Wasn't that George Bush? So
Ronald Reagan also.
Yeah. So what I want to know is, what is the difference in our politicians? I mean, there are some differences in some ways or another, but they're all leading us to the brink of world destruction. We are urging you to call 212-209-2950, and there are, in fact, yes, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I also think it's so important for people to support the station, to know that this latest assassination, so-called, it really shows that the system, regardless of who's in office, is incapable of any progressive change. It's really permanent crisis, permanent war, wholesale attacks on the living standards of workers here and around the world, and justifying it always with more war, higher military budgets. So the fight back against it, which is becoming also a global phenomenon, that's why they want to show their power, because they have felt the power of a mass movement in Egypt, in Tunisia, sweeping the area. That's the real changer, and it's what we need to feel also here. The impact in Wisconsin, the impact of people struggling can and does change history. So keeping the station alive and keeping the struggle alive is very important at this stage, because there are big, big changes, both of complete reaction and also very important progressive and political changes in the people's movements. To say also, just yesterday, a very important New York-based imam, Latif, was barred from even boarding a flight in New York City.
Really?
And sent back. He came back the next day. There's a very important court hearing in Brooklyn on Tuesday morning where there's an effort to stop a simple masjid from being built, an Islamic center in Sheepshead Bay, and a racist mobilization against it. So people are being urged to come out to court on Tuesday morning. Mm-hmm. So each of these events, very, very important that we respond to them, respond to keeping the station alive, and also be on the streets in defense of those who are literally under attack at this point, because it creates anti-Muslim racism on a very, very deep level, and it's intended to do that.